Evening all, welcome to the Pyramid Podcast, where three lads discuss all things the English football pyramid. On today's episode, we'll have a review of the Premier League, including another fantastic North London derby and a record-breaking day for Newcastle. A roundup of wider EFL, including wins for Leicester, Leeds, Portsmouth, Oxford, Notts County and Stockport. And we'll check in with Lauro on his day to the home of Ted Lasso. I'm your host, Alex Murphy, and once again, I'm joined by Tom Lawrence and Tom Gallagher. We'll go straight to the North London derby. Lauro, I think you and Tomo both predicted 3-2. At one stage, was looking quite likely, but I ended up being correct in calling a draw.
Well, my prediction was slightly more complex than that, and I think it was quite spot on for the most part. I thought it would be a very good game between two sides, and Arsenal would just have too much being at home and also the way they're playing. I just think they're a little bit ahead of Tottenham in terms of their team's progression. And it did go like that. And the only thing that didn't happen was Arsenal didn't have enough to get that third goal and get the 3 points. And I think a big thing about that is that we said at the start of the season, we had this conversation on the podcast, and we said, is it a problem to have Gabriel Jesus leading the line for Arsenal when he's not a 20, 25 goal a season man? And we said, well, no, because he plays that Firmino role and he brings in Martinelli and Saka, doesn't he? And they can get the goals. And obviously yesterday we had Saka, but we didn't have Martinelli, and then we didn't have Trossard on the left-hand side to come in for him. So all of a sudden the dynamic changes, and then Nketiah and Jesus both had to play, and fine margin Claxon. I think that was probably the fine margin going forward that didn't allow them to go ahead and get that third goal and win the game. I don't want to be disrespectful to Spurs. I expect their fans probably think that they could have won the game as well. I thought they were really good. More signs of that character being built into their mentality from Ange Postecoglou and the players in the side. You can tell they believe in what they're doing. When they go a goal down, they came back. When they went 2 goals down, they were straight back at the other end with a really good passing move, and Maddison finding Son twice in the game. So really good signs for them. Disappointing for Arsenal because I think they will see that as 2 points dropped. But I do think that was a problem having Martinelli and Trossard both out, and Jesus, and I think there was a couple of times where Nketiah maybe could have flung himself a couple of balls across the box, and he just didn't have that sort of smell the blood mentality in him to get on the end of things. I think Gary Neville alluded to it as well within his commentary. So that was the difference for me. But a great point for Tottenham. Another game in their progression, but 2 points drop for Arsenal for me if they want to be challenging Man City this season.
Tomo?
Yeah, completely agree with what Laura was saying. I was going to bring up Gabriel Jesus, actually, because I thought Arsenal started the game really well, didn't they? And they looked like they sort of flew out the blocks, completely overwhelmed Tottenham for the first 20, 25 minutes. And then I think the sort of game-changing moment was when Gabriel Jesus pickpocketed Maddison at the edge of the box, and he had a chance to score, and he's just got to score that. And if he goes and scores that and makes it 2-0, it's a very long way back for Tottenham. And actually, I had a little look before the podcast about that chance. That chance, Lauro, was worth 0.43 xG, which I guess means
he had half a chance.
Yeah, so basically, but an elite striker finishes that, and then it sort of changes the game for Arsenal's benefit. What I will say, since Jesus' Premier League debut, so obviously for Man City, he has underperformed his expected goals by 15, more than any other Premier League player. So, to your point, Lauro, where will Gabriel Jesus potentially cost them getting to that next level? That's a big stat that backs up that point, because he missed. I think there was he had a sort of a half chance before that. It was a left-footed half volley. Vicario saved really well. And then that chance was the one where you're just looking at it going, go on, like finish your dinner, and then it's a different game. Tottenham grew into the game after that. And it was a great assist for Sonny's first goal for James Maddison. And I liked his little rebuttal of Bukayo Saka's dart celebration after the game. He said, I just got told that Saka did my celebration. It looked like he was still doing that celebration as I'd done him for the or as I turned him for the first goal. So it's not nice bit of bite there. And do you know what? Like, I always think about the North London derby. Sometimes, like Sky Sports and TNT Sports, they build up these games, and they build them up so much they end up being a bit of a disappointment. But that's never the case with the North London derby. It's always
delivers.
Yeah, it's always a good game, and it was a great game to watch. I think Gary Neville mentioned that he thought that Arsenal sort of over celebrated a little bit and got carried away with that when Saka scored their second, and then obviously that may have led to the error straight away that led to Tottenham's equaliser. And another point I just wanted to make quickly. I don't really like to talk about sort of decisions that affect games, but the penalty decision, it involved the same player. So Romero handled the ball, and he handled the ball when Garnacho had a shot against Tottenham early on in the season, and for some reason that wasn't a penalty, and then this one was a penalty, and I don't know how Romero can get out of the way of that. He's like a yard away from him. Unless he's got no hands, unless he's an amputee, there's no way he can get out of the way of that. So
I think with that one though, do you think that it's almost like the Garnacho one, when they're looking at that, all you see is kind of Romero's arm and Garnacho. But with the Arsenal one, I was just watching it and you can just see the whole goal gaping and Ben White's 5 yards out rather than Garnacho hitting it from 20 yards. I know it's the penalty area, but I'm trying to think into the mindset of the people making that decision. The Garnacho one's almost like a shot. You don't know whether it's going to be, it looks like it's going to be on target, but you don't know whether it's going to go in. That there for me, I think VAR have looked at that. And maybe this is where you kind of have that human element come into it. That's just going in, isn't it, into an empty net? And then, so my point for it is, though, is I know you can't have double jeopardy with penalty and red card for certain, like a tackle in the box or something like that. But if that's stopping the ball going into the net, is that not a red as well for that?
Denial of a goal scoring opportunity.
Yeah,
I think there might have been someone on the line, but like that was definitely a penalty. And I ain't got a clue what the rule is now. But even like you're right, he might not be able to get his arm out the way, but that shouldn't be Arsenal's problem. That should be Tottenham's problem. So I couldn't get my arm out the way. Well, you've just stopped us having a really good chance / goal there. So unlucky you couldn't get your arm out the way. No sending off. No double jeopardy. The double jeopardy is there that if you make a challenge in the box and it's a penalty, you don't get sent off unless you didn't make a challenge for the ball. Do you know what I mean? If you're just sliding in and the ball's gone, you still can get sent off. But that there is definitely a penalty. I don't remember the Romero one against Man United. Obviously, you boys do because it was against your team. But that one there, justice prevailed. The ball can't be travelling towards the goal, hit someone's arm, and that stop it going in the goal and not be a penalty. Whether it's unlucky or not, it has to be given.
Yeah, my point on that is, you probably are right, and I'm probably looking too much into it just with the United bias sort of head on. It's just a case of he's like a yard away, unless he hasn't got arms, because it's not like he's moved his arm towards the ball or anything like that. He's just got his arms by his side and it hits his arm. Yeah. So maybe you're right, but
what in that situation, the ball has stopped travelling towards the goal. So one of the teams is going to get punished. Either Arsenal don't get to see where that ball goes, or Tottenham concede a penalty. And for me, it's unlucky on Tottenham. It shouldn't be unlucky on Arsenal. It's not their fault his hand's there, just as much as it's not Romero's. So penalty for me. But what the actual rule is, I give up. I don't know.
No, I completely agree. I don't know what the rule is, but just to go back to the Garnacho one, I think that's a penalty as well. We were at the pub, Laura, after watching Yeovil play, and I think it was the 5:30 game, and we were all stood there, and it was just, well, that's clearly a pen because it's not down by his side or like a flick on from a header, and it's sort of like got his arm across his face or anything like that. It's like arm out, strikes it, goal bound. But I'm trying to think for the rationale why one's given and one isn't. I just think the camera angle at the Emirates was like the goal is gaping behind and it's 4 yards out and it looks like it's just going into an empty net, as opposed to Garnacho's was sort of 20 yards out. Romero's just inside the box. You don't really know what's going to go on with the ball, but I do think both are pens. Another talking point from that game, boys, which is a bit of a funny one, is just to get your thoughts on Ramsdale's celebration of the Raya save from Brennan Johnson. 2 points on that. Firstly, I think Brennan Johnson's got to bury that. He had so much of the goal to aim for, and he just looked to me like he was trying to get it on target. But once it was on target, and obviously he's put it where it is, what a save from Raya. But Tomo, bit theatrics from Ramsdale or genuine happiness for a teammate?
I don't know really. I think we're all looking a bit too much into it. Like, have you seen Ramsdale's dad's called Carragher a disgrace on Twitter?
Yeah, he called someone else a prick as well. So I think Mr. Ramsdale had a glass of vino.
For what reason?
Yeah, but listen, look.
To what end is he calling people pricks?
No, basically, people are saying that Ramsdale's just putting on a show and just clapping for the sake of clapping. But what's he supposed to do? Like,
yeah,
I guarantee you, he's sat there thinking, "Oh, there's like 100 cameras on me right now." Like the amount of times that Sky moved their camera to Ramsdale after Raya did something, and actually, I thought that was Raya's worst game for United. For Arsenal. He obviously made that save, which was world class. But other than that, he looked dodgy, and on another sort of at any other club, you wouldn't look too much into it because there's not a sort of another goalie on the bench like Ramsdale, basically another number one. But at Arsenal, you're looking into absolutely everything they're doing, and
well, you're surprised, aren't you, that Arteta hasn't subbed Ramsdale on in the 60th minute, considering how his biggest regrets in football are not making substitution of goalkeepers midway through a game. Because you're right, Raya dropped that ball, didn't he, which led to the first goal, the kind of build up to that before Maddison turned him. And yeah, he didn't look like he had his best game. So surprised at that from Arteta.
Yeah, and just before we move on, I just wanted to mention Yves Bissouma, because I thought he was absolutely world class. And I think we spoke quite like early on in the summer when we started the podcast about him and about his potential for Spurs. I know he had a poor season last year, but mainly that seems to be obviously Tottenham were poor. He had injury issues, etc., etc. Obviously, didn't settle into the club as well as you'd like. And Postecoglou's come in and he's just got the best out of him, and it's almost like a new signing. And he looks like the best. Well, he looks like up there with like Rodri as the best DM in the league at the minute on form. He just looks class. There was a bit at the sort of 85th minute where he was under pressure from like 3 Arsenal players and he just dribbled through them all, carried the ball all the way up to the sort of the last third of the pitch and played a ball and got Tottenham at the pitch. And that's exactly what you need when you're under pressure at the Emirates. It's 2-2 and you just need a calm, composed head in centre mid who can do that. And I wish United had him. He's unbelievable.
He is. He's been brilliant this season, and he's got those sort of athletic attributes to be able to carry the ball forward. But you could really see him in the second half. And I think we haven't mentioned yet, Declan Rice obviously had to come off at halftime yesterday, and there was a big kind of shift in momentum, I think, with Tottenham being able to overrun Arsenal a little bit more in midfield and get a lot more joy. So I hope that, I don't know what the injury is there, but hopefully it's not too serious for Declan Rice, because that would be a big miss. As soon as they brought Jorginho on, it was a bit of a different game.
Yeah, so go on. Just on that, the Mail just did a story basically saying that they expect him to be back for the City game, which is like 2 weeks. So that does mean he's going to miss 3 games. So it'll be interesting to see how Arsenal cope without him, because, like you say, he's been a monster, isn't he, in that midfield this season.
Well, that actually is a good point, Tom. I've got the fixtures for both sides here, and I was going to bring up a different point, which we'll come on to. But actually, if he's back for the City game in the Prem, the games that he does miss are Brentford away in the Carabao Cup, Bournemouth away in the Prem, and then Lens away in France in the Champions League. So, I mean, you probably don't want Declan Rice out for any games, but if they get him back for that Man City game, which Rodri will miss, and obviously we'll come on to that, that's probably a big bonus for Arsenal to have him back. But couple of other potential injuries there. So Maddison, it looked really bad, didn't it? That sort of knee, it reminded me a bit of like the Zlatan and Van der Beek from United kind of, and I think Kurt Zuma did it as well. That sort of knee inverts and looks like a bad one. I think I even put in our WhatsApp that looked like a bad one, and Gary Neville said the same. But he went on to play, but apparently has felt some discomfort. And also Saka came off injured as well. Looked like sort of got caught on the leg or got trapped under someone else and caught his leg. Both might be going to have scans, but they're probably the most influential players for both of them. So if both teams have sort of dropped a couple of points and both of those were out for any sort of period of time, then that would be bad news for both clubs, actually.
And just on Maddison, they play Liverpool next Saturday. at 5:30, which is an absolutely massive game. Another massive game. Spurs have looked great, haven't they? And even though they didn't get the win at the Emirates, it's a positive result, especially with coming back from going behind twice. But that knee injury just looked to me like there's no way he can play on Saturday. I can't see it, to be honest. And it'll be interesting to see how Spurs get on. I think it's at Spurs, so home advantage in that. But be interesting to see how they get on without Maddison if he does miss the game, because it did look like a naughty one, nasty one.
And we've spoken before about how we don't really know who replaces him, do we? In that Tottenham team, like for like. I mean, is it Lo Celso? I mean, it's a big downgrade, and it's a big game, that Liverpool one. You don't have the sort of ferocity of the North London derby. That's to settle back into the Premier League. How do you shape up against Liverpool, who look like a genuine top 3 side? So if they're without Maddison, another hurdle for Postecoglou to overcome, which I'm sure he'll do. But be interesting to see how it pans out.
So, Laurie, just to go back to the fixtures. So Arsenal, I've already said Brentford, Bournemouth, Lons away, 2 in the Cup, 1 in the Prem, but then Man City home and then Chelsea away. Tottenham don't have those sort of cup distractions, some might call them, some other people would say nice distractions, but they've just got league fixtures really. Liverpool home, but then Luton away, Fulham home, Palace away and Chelsea home. If they get a result against Liverpool, they're both on 14 points, Arsenal and Tottenham. But if Tottenham go and get a result against Liverpool and then go into that stretch of easy fixtures, I mean, we might get through to the October international break and the other side of it, and Spurs be right up there. What's your thoughts on sort of? I know Big Ange just said not to stop dreaming. What's your thoughts on what they'll be looking for?
Well, I don't want to get too excited, but Ange just told us that we can, from a sort of casual Tottenham fan this season. I just think the sky's the limit. Sometimes that I did have Tottenham as 4th this season because of that non-European excursion that they won't be. I mean, like you said, Maddison, for instance, if you're one of your most influential players is quite injury player, and it's good that he's not going to be playing Saturday, Wednesday. It's good that he can just concentrate on the Premier League football. And for Tottenham, I think it's one game at a time and just keep checking off those milestones and those points that they never had before. Like I said, coming from behind, playing a better brand of football, then coming from behind twice and getting a point at Emirates where they probably would have crumbled last season. Now they've got to go and play Liverpool, a big club that isn't a North London derby. And then if they get past that and they've got a run of games that they're expected to win, can they handle that pressure on them? And if they do hit, not the top, because Man City won't lose, but if they do hit, dizzy heights, can they stay there? So we'll just have to see. But it's a new team and a new kind of aura at the club, and we'll just see how far it can go. But I think it's a good point that Ange is probably quite happy he doesn't have the European distraction this year, so he can just get his feet under the table, sort everything out, concentrate on the league, and then see where they can get to.
Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on Spurs, because, as I say, their fixtures are looking quite tasty and no distractions. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them up and amongst it in a couple months' time. Boys, we'll move on. Tomo, I'll come to you. So the second half of Super Sunday, I was pretty fuming about, and we spoke about annoying that it was on TV, but turned out to be a bit of a goal fest, albeit one-sided. Sheffield United 0, Newcastle 8, and 8 different scorers.
Yeah. One of those games where if you're a Sheffield United fan, Jesus Christ, absolutely day ruiner, weekend ruiner. Yeah, but do you know what? Actually, they didn't start the game that bad, to be fair. And then Harvey Barnes got an injury and Anthony Gordon come on, and he just he changed the game, and he looked absolutely class. He's had a good start to the season, isn't he? I think he had a pretty slow start to his Newcastle career. I remember at one stage last year he got subbed and kicked off to Eddie Howe, and he's a bit of a petulant, sort of emotional player. So I wasn't 100% convinced about him, but he had a good summer with the under 21s, and he's sort of taken that good confidence and good form into the season with Newcastle. But that game, I was watching it, and basically I was just thinking, I don't have Kieran Trippier, I'm absolutely fuming. And he obviously got the hat-trick of assists, which I think, here's one stat for you, which Opta put out. Kieran Trippier is only the second player in Premier League history to assist 3-headed goals in a single game. Can you name the other one?
Say that again.
Kieran Trippier is the second player in Premier League history to assist 3-headed goals in a single game. Can you name the
De
other
Bruyne.
one? No, you'll never get it, and I'll have
David
to tell you.
Beckham.
It's Jason Puncheon for Palace against West Ham in February 2015. But yeah, Trippier looked class, and obviously he just he had a great game, didn't he, in Milan in the San Siro, and he looked great again. Callum Wilson started the game ahead of Isak and continues his good goal scoring form. I think he's got 15 goals in his last 18 Premier League games. And we spoke before, didn't we, about I felt that Isak probably is a better all-round footballer than Wilson, but there's no denying that Wilson's a better goal scorer. So that'll be interesting to see how that one goes forward. But and Laura, I think you've mentioned quite a lot before about Eddie Howe seems to have got that dynamic between Isak and Wilson right, whereas and obviously Isak come off the bench and scored, but Wilson mentioned after the game that he wasn't too happy to be on the bench at the San Siro after scoring last week. But then he said, look, all you can do is stay professional, train hard, and score when you get the chance. And it must be such a dream to be a manager for someone like Wilson, because he never, obviously he says he's unhappy that he doesn't play all the time, but he always comes on and does well, doesn't he? And he just seems like the sort of ultimate professional. And yeah, it's a great week for Newcastle, wasn't it?
Well, you've missed a tap in, TGall, because a couple of weeks ago, you told me that Sheffield United had the worst expected XG against them, and I rubbished you at the door. And yesterday they've conceded 8 and lost 8-0. So I was half expecting to have to defend myself there, but I'm glad I haven't. But I am very embarrassed because on the last podcast, I actually said that I thought that would be a tough game for Newcastle. I thought coming off the back of a tiring experience in Milan that looked to have taken quite a lot out of them, and then to go to Bramall Lane against a Paul Heckingbottom side where the manager's come under some sudden pressure, I thought his team might sort of pull together and produce a performance. But I would go as far as to say I think that's the worst Premier League performance I have ever seen. They just weren't there. It was like they weren't on the pitch. Everything Newcastle did, they just seemed to have acres and acres of space, and it was like they were just playing against no one. It was an absolute field day, 8 different scorers. And look, you can credit Newcastle and Eddie Howe, but it feels like anyone would have won 8-0 there yesterday. I thought that was absolutely disgraceful from Sheffield United, and obviously they're going to have a big job on their hands to bounce back straight away because it was a bit humiliating. But you're right, Eddie Howe has mastered that dynamic of rotating the squad well. And I think when Callum Wilson said he's not happy about being on the bench, he's not saying he's not happy, full stop. It's just, of course, if you're a top level athlete, you want to be playing every game. It would be wrong for him to be happy to be on the bench. But every time one of them's on the bench, the other one comes on and scores, and vice versa. And Isaac started against AC Milan. Wilson started yesterday. They both scored. And as long as Eddie Howe keeps on, he won't always have the luxury. At some point, someone will get injured. Wilson likes an injury. Isaac probably will as his career goes on. So it's just whilst they're both fit, rotating them and getting the best out of them. And Eddie Howe is doing that very well. So, yeah, great performance from Newcastle, but absolutely rubbish from Sheffield United, and a real worrier for Paul Heckingbottom.
So I'll come back on to Sheffield United to have a talk about them, their manager, and their general performances. But just back to the Newcastle point, and in particular about Wilson and Isak. So their next 3 fixtures is they've got Man City in the Carabao Cup, which you won't be surprised to know is on TV on Wednesday. Newcastle back on TV. Then they've got Burnley in the Prem, and then they've got PSG in the Champions League at home. Now, if you're just doing, this is a bit, simple maths, but if you're going Isak to start against City and then Wilson back in for Burnley, then Isak back in for PSG, kind of looks like from Wilson's point of view, he's getting the short end of the stick there, isn't he, with Sheffield United and Burnley Prem and Isak getting the Man City and PSG games. Can I just
say, I actually think Laura made a good point there about Wilson's injuries, and he has been injury prone throughout his career. So I couldn't see Wilson be managing the load of three starts a week. Could you, without getting injured? So actually, and the fact that now they're in the Champions League, so they've got the European games coming up. It's good for Eddie Howe that he can keep them both happy, because the games are coming thick and fast. And I agree with you. Yeah, Wilson will definitely want to start against PSG. It's at St James's Park as well, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that's. I think he mentioned PSG actually. He said he definitely wants to play that game in his podcast, but that's the sort of the luxury of having so many games that those two players won't be happy that they're on the bench for some games, but they'll be happy enough at the club, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the point though that I think you're saying, isn't it, Murph? Like that PSG home game particularly, whoever starts for Newcastle that day, that's Eddie Howe's best 11, isn't it? And you can sort of see from that, who he fancies, not who he doesn't fancy, but who he fancies as his first 11. And I think just preempting that, you feel like it's going to be Isak, which is probably why we all feel that Isaac's, or a lot of people have the idea that Isaac's slightly better than Wilson. But I do think they're quite different players. They're both very good strikers, but like you say, Wilson's a very good goal scorer, and I think Isaac's more of a sort of wiry, raw striker with lots more to go because he's still young. But Wilson will want to start that PSG game, and unfortunately, unless there's an injury, I don't think he will. But you never know. You would have thought they'd have played their best team against AC Milan, and Jacob Murphy ended up starting on the wing. So room for optimism, but we'll just have to see how that unfolds. But I doubt anyone's going to care about the Carabao Cup against Man City. Wouldn't surprise me if both of them were hoping they're on the bench for that.
Yeah, true enough. I think it's, you say Wilson said about wants to start the PSG game. I think on his podcast, he then also, I think, calls Eddie Howe daddy in it as well. So you're saying that Howe must think it's an absolute pleasure to have Wilson playing for him. But if one of your players is calling you daddy on a podcast.
Yeah, he doesn't call him daddy, does he? That's Antonio. Come on.
Yeah, well, Antonio's just as bad. He's there saying, we'll come on to that. He's saying that I think I've got Liverpool's number and that we're going to finish above Liverpool. But yeah, that I imagine the managers probably listen to that podcast, tearing their hair out, thinking, for God's sake, chaps. But yeah, what great time to be Newcastle fan. Anyway, look at the conversations we're having where they don't care about Man City in the cup. They got PSG in the Champions League and they're worried about which one of their two elite strikers are starting in games and most happy with 8-0 wins. So dreamland for the Magpies. On the other hand, Sheffield United, I think we've all spoke about, haven't we now? We all probably thought Burnley were going to do better, but the three promoted sides look absolutely abject, don't look like they can buy a win, and we'll come on to Luton and Burnley results moving forward. I've just been looking while you guys are chatting at Sheffield United's fixtures coming up. West Ham away, tricky. Fulham away, one they've probably got to go and win. Man United at home should be tricky. Arsenal away, it's just not looking good for them, is it? And Heckingbottom's obviously just had that defeat. We've had conversations about Wilder being in the stands before, but surely something's going to have to change for them soon, Laura.
Yeah, I mean, after that performance yesterday, I think they're hopeless. I don't think they've got hope in hell. I mean, coming into the season, I thought they were the worst squad on paper. They made a couple of good late signings with Hamer and Archer, and they've had some decent-ish performances. Not well beaten, but better than what we were thinking. But no chance. Just that the Premier League is so strong, and we'll probably speak about a couple of teams later that I think are a bit of a myth that could be down there. But Sheffield United, absolutely hopeless. No hope. Don't see it now. Same with Luton, who we'll speak about later. But sorry, I can't offer any words of encouragement after that performance yesterday. I've just watched it back on Match of the Day 2 again. I honestly cannot believe it. I would be so angry if I was a Blade.
Yeah, it's looking pretty bad, as you say, after what was potentially not well beaten, as you say, but hopeful performances against Spurs, Everton and City. But yeah, that was abject. Guys, we'll move on to another side who can't buy a win, but slightly more expensive in terms of squad. Chelsea, I think all three of us actually said it was just a complete Villa win. It was half a Loro's double, which I lost a tenner on with the West Ham Liverpool draw. But Villa went and won away at Stamford Bridge to nobody's surprise. Nicholas Jackson has managed to achieve something in regards to getting 5 bookings, and then will now miss the derby against Fulham with a 1-match suspension 6 games into the season. But what a terrible time to be a Chelsea fan, Tomo.
Yeah, it's depressing. And it's depressing to be a United fan. And I was with Prescott yesterday, our Chelsea fan mate, and honestly, he is like, there's no hope. And that's the thing about football. All you want to do is go into weekends and have a bit of hope. But Chelsea's biggest problem is sticking the ball in the back of the net. We spoke about it, haven't we, before? Nico Jackson just looks like he doesn't look like it's there. Don't think it will ever be there. Raheem Sterling's never been the best finishing, is he? Obviously, City and Pep turned him into a bit of a back post merchant where he was getting tap-ins quite a lot, but he's never really been a great finisher. And obviously, Mudryk, I mean, he's got 8 years to settle into Chelsea, but so you're looking like hopefully he will get there sometime in the future, but he's not looking like it at the minute. Yeah, it's disappointing for Chelsea, but what can you say about that game, right? So it's the first time in 30 years that Villa have beaten Chelsea twice in a row in the league. And we all predicted it, didn't we, before the game? It's Chelsea's worst start to a season after 6 matches since 1978. Just a little FPL point, Ben Chilwell on the bench again, brought on again, and booked again.
And missed a big chance as well.
Yeah, and he missed a sitter, didn't he? So, but the Ben Chilwell on the bench thing doesn't make any sense to me. It's strange. I know Colwell's done really well this season, but just Chilwell is like one of the best left backs in the league. Just don't overthink it, Poch, and just start him. Yeah, it's looking long in it for Chelsea fans. There's not really much to add, to be honest. They've got Brighton next as well, which I think that's in the cup, isn't it, though? So, but yeah, it's not looking good.
No, we've spoken long and hard about Nicholas Jackson not being a goal scorer, and we nipped that in the bud a while ago. But this is going on. It's not. It can't just be him. I mean, yeah, he's missing chances. But what about like Conor Gallagher, for instance, who starts every week? When he was at Palace, he was always good for a goal or an assist or a good bit of play. What, like Enzo, are you going to score? Sterling, a brace at the start of the season. That doesn't mean you can go to sleep for the next 5-6 games, especially when you've got a striker that you know is struggling to put the ball in the back of the net. They've got to come from other areas. And it's just not happening from Mudryk, Enzo, Sterling, Gallagher, none of them. And Ben Chilwell, I thought, looked like their best attacker at the start of the season, minus that ridiculous chance he missed against Luton. But it wasn't a double. I told everyone to cash out of the Liverpool West Ham draw and put it all on Aston Villa to win. And I thought a moment that ironically summed it all up was Ollie Watkins got put through and finished from a tight angle, which was a very good finish. And that's exactly the chance that Nicholas Jackson keeps on getting and keeps on either fluffing into the stands. I mean, did you see that meme that went out on Twitter last week? And it was Nicholas Jackson against Bournemouth taking a shot, and they kept rewinding it and just making the goal bigger. And they ended up making the goal bigger by something like 375 times, and it finally crept in at the near post. And I think that sums everything up. Couple that with TalkSport talking about what relegation looks like for Chelsea today, and it's just miserable. And I've got the team up in front of me now, and it just looks. I mean, Thiago Silva, I think he's planning in his 40th birthday now. I genuinely think it's his 40th coming up. Put Colwell in the middle, play Chilwell, and just add some. Something's got to give there, and they've got to start finding something from somewhere. And I think Ben Chilwell, there's got to be more to him than coming on for 10 minutes and get booked so I get no points on fantasy football. Get him back in the side, and God, I mean, how far away is Nkuku? He needs to come back soon, or if not, January and a big striker. I think TGall thinks Tony might be going there, so maybe that's what you're putting your hand up for. But yeah, they're an absolute disgrace in the minute.
Just a quick couple of stats on that as well. So the combined centre mid partnership of Boubacar Kamara and Douglas Luiz was 15 million quid, and the combined centre mid partnership of Enzo and Caicedo was 220 million. And I think Enzo now has lost 15 of his last 29 games for Chelsea. And it's looking like, and let's put it right, in that sort of scenario, are the Villa players 10 times worse than those Chelsea players? Not at all. So there's a massive Chelsea tax on these useless owners. They're getting overcharged for absolutely everyone, and the owners are just saying, yeah, fuck it, we'll pay it. And it's also, I guess it's a sign of good coaching, isn't it? Like Kamara Kamara and Douglas Luiz have looked really good in the centre of midfield for Villa alongside McGinn. I think they play like a little bit of a box midfield now, don't they? And yeah, I was a little bit nervous, to be honest. After Villa lost on Thursday in Poland, I was a little bit nervous about how they would react. But yeah, Chelsea looked terrible and can't see them getting European football again this season.
No, I definitely don't think they will, which is obviously not that big of a statement considering they're on 5 points from 6 games. But I look at their team and it just, as we've just said, it just doesn't even look that great. Villa's team looks better. You then look at who Villa brought off the bench. They brought off Leon Bailey, Dendoncker, this Duran, Jacob Ramsey, Yuri Tielemans. And then Chelsea are bringing off Brozier, Chilwell, Cole Palmer, and Ugo Chukwu, who I'm sure are all promising bright youngsters other than Chilwell, but it's just stale and dour for them.
They've just got the balance wrong, haven't they? They've just got the balance completely wrong.
Yeah, and their owner's obviously gone all in on potential future superstars in the hope that they're going to gel and hit the ground running straight away. But they need to go. What they need to do is, rather than sign the next 2 players for 80 to 100 million, is take that 160 million and buy 5 or 6, or 4 or 5 top pros from the Prem that are just proven Prem 27, 28-year-olds. But who's going to sign for them and who's going to accept those bids from Chelsea now?
I think there's a problem there because from what I understand, a lot of these 8-year contracts are being put into place to combat financial fair play, and so they can be booked sort of over the course of 8 years. Whereas if you sign and you can do that if you're signing a young player, because there could feasibly be 8 years worth of sort of career progression. But if you sign a 28, 29, 30-year-old that's at the top of their game now, you can't do that 8-year contract. You can't give a 30-year-old an 8-year contract, can you? You can only give him a couple of years. And all of a sudden, that goes back into the financial fair play. So maybe they've made a bit of a rod for their own back in terms of the way they've set it up logistically and financially, that they have to sign these young players and hope they hit the ground running. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to go and buy Bruno Fernandes now on an 8-year contract. It would be absolutely ridiculous. It would be depreciation. Whereas if you sign Lavia, Caicedo, etc., there's a good chance and a feasibility that they could be worth more in 8 years' time, and they can be balanced and split into 8 rather than looking like you've booked 80 million this summer. It could be 10 million for the next 8 summers. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's what the amortization is there to do, right? It's like you can then do the transfer money across the span of that contract. So if you pay it, let's just say 80 million for Caicedo, that's in your financial books 10 million for the next 8 years. And then if you sell them in 5 years' time for a hefty profit, you bank all of that money straight away in fees coming in, and then you just pay off the rest of 3 years. But I just look at this Chelsea situation. This might be a bit dramatic, but if these players are just not ending up being that good, if Caicedo doesn't pick up his Brighton form, if Enzo decides he wants to leave because he genuinely looks class, Mudryk doesn't look that good, some of these other players aren't that good, but then you can't ship them out because they're on 8-year deals on massive wages, and then the owners get bored at Chelsea. There must be real concerns in amongst their fans about long-term repercussions for Chelsea, and they obviously can't. Their business model isn't set up to not have European football or not been selling out Stamford Bridge every season or every game. So if I was a Chelsea, it's not great being a United fan, but if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd be so worried about them. Just one talking point from that game before we move on. Tomo, the red card, Malo Gusto, do you think that was a red?
Not really, no. And do you know what made me think it wasn't? Was just the fact that when you slow like those kind of incidents down as like into slow-mo like they do it makes it look 10 times worse. But I think the ref gave a yellow card straight away, didn't he? And it didn't seem like there was that much sort of uproar and, it's definitely a red, ref. But yeah, I didn't think it was one. But I mean, it's not something really I would complain about too much. If it was a United, if it was like Diogo Dalot, I'd be fuming. But it is one of those things. That's the thing with VAR. They slow things down, make them look like 10 times worse. It's the same with the handball incidents. They slow them down, and then it's just like, well, yeah, obviously it looks like a handball when it's slowed down like that. But players can't react. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just I'm not a big fan of VAR and slowing things down.
I've just watched that red card, and you're exactly right. Like in normal time, the ref's right, it's a yellow card. Doesn't look like a red at all. And then as soon as it's slowed down, all the context goes out of it, and it's just a set of studs on an ankle. And it's
Yeah.
like, is that a red card then, ref? Well, no, the speed of it matters, and the context of the move and how he arrived matters. So, absolutely right. So nothing to add, really. Probably a yellow card.
I absolutely hate those still frames of red cards. Casemiro got sent off, didn't he, against Southampton last year, where the build up to that is like he touches the ball and then it flies his foot up in the air, but the still shot is just him nailing someone straight across the tibia and fibia, and it's like, well, off you go, Casemiro. That's a straight red. But yeah, and well, just VAR for you. I actually thought the Nketiah one was more of a red than that. He completely away from the ball. I know they said that the studs didn't touch the leg and that was the saving grace, but I thought he just chopped through the keeper. So I thought that was more of a red, but just inconsistencies in that. Boys, moving on. So one of the biggest shocks of the weekend, probably, Everton going and winning at Brentford and winning quite handsomely. So Decore, Tarkowski and Calvert-Lewin scoring for Everton, and Jensen had equalised for Brentford. But Lauro, what a result for the Toffees.
Yeah, credit where it's due. And look, Everton do have that in them. We must have mentioned the Brighton 5-0 win about 20 times on this podcast, and it's about being able to repeat it and repeat it. So we'll see how they go on and pick up points from here. But yeah, we do have to give them credit because Brentford are a side that are at least perceived to be a very good Premier League one. And generally they do pick up some good results and they're hard to beat. And I just think that the way they set up at the moment, I would say, is like a 4-4-1-1. And their wingers, like I think James Garner played on the right, and you've got Dwight McNeil that's never very good in terms of output for assists and goals. And then you've got Idrissa Gueye and Onana sat behind Decore. So Decore, who sort of in his Watford days is more of an 8, maybe even a 6, becomes a 10. And there's so much reliance on him to create or score or make stuff happen because you've got your man Beto up front who, you know, is a lovely guy, but Beto's come in and I don't think he's a footballer for me. And that's not going to happen every single week. What I will say is when you can bring Dominic Calvert-Lewin into the fold, they're a completely different team. Completely different team. He can occupy centre-backs. He can make runs into channels. He's good in the air. He can finish off chances. And he gives the opposition something to think about. And I guarantee you, when an opposition team line up against Everton and they see Beto up front, the centre-backs straight away thinking, right, we're going to command this game. When they're seeing Calvert-Lewin, they're thinking, right, we're in for a bit of a handful this afternoon. So the key for Everton is absolutely keeping him fit. Particularly as Sean Dyche is their manager and he likes to play with like a focal point up front and maybe bang balls into him, etc., and take a little bit of the pressure off of whoever's playing in the number 10 role, particularly if it's Decore, who isn't really a number 10. He's more of he does score goals, but arriving from midfield rather than actually having the onus on him to create everything. But I've hounded and been very negative about Everton this year, and that was a great win. So we'll see how they go from here. They need to. It's not good enough just to have one every 10 games. They need to go and start picking up points now. So we'll see how they build on it. But yeah, a good win for them, 3-1. And I think it's fantastic to see Calvert-Lewin back because he's a great Premier League striker who can score lots of goals for them.
Tomo, looking at Everton's fixtures coming up, they got Villa in the EFL Cup, but in the Prem, they've got Luton at home and Bournemouth at home as their next two before Merseyside derby. But Sean Dyche must be looking at that with Luton and Bournemouth and thinking, if we can get a couple wins there, 3 in a row, that suddenly takes the pressure off of him and might just get Everton's season properly going.
Yeah, 100%. Do you know what? With Everton, I don't actually think for the first couple of games of the season, I don't actually think they were that bad. And they just need, like you say, like Laura said, they just need a striker. And we obviously spoke a lot about Beto. He had a good chance in this game and he fluffed his lines, which is worrying as a big Beto fan, as I am. He's got a touch of the Nico Jackson about him. But obviously, if DCL comes back in, they'll look good. And that Luton game looks just like 3 points easy. Bournemouth will be a tricky game, but if they can win there, then they go to the Merseyside derby against Liverpool, albeit at Anfield, but full of confidence with 3 on the bounce. So, yeah, look, it was a really good win. It was one of those games though where you just think, was it Brentford being bad and Everton being good, and there's probably somewhere in the middle where Everton probably weren't as good as they sort of Brentford made them look. Obviously, Tarkowski did really well against his old club, got an assist and a goal. And
He's been really good this season.
Yeah, and he defended.
Really
he defended really well. And I just want to. So obviously, you spoke about those two home fixtures, Murph. What are we thinking about FPL? 4.4 million. Luton at home, Bournemouth at home. It's good for and obviously he's a big threat on set pieces, which we all know Sean Dyche loves. So I'm thinking about bringing Big James into my FPL team.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in FPL are bringing Morris in, aren't they, from Luton, the striker, because he's on pens and they've got a double game week with Everton and Burnley. So if I do bring Morris in, then I would say everyone get James Tarkowski in, because it will be clean sheet, guaranteed.
Yeah, he's got a double game week, Carlton Morris, but he still plays for Luton.
Yeah, I know. I thought that.
Don't get carried away.
Yeah, so but no, great result for the Toffees. I actually think I know that they do play sometimes some horrible football, and we spoke about they got their new stadium coming and it doesn't look good for them, but they're a proper Prem side, aren't they, like in regards to stature. So if they start getting a run of results together, I think I'd back them to pull clear of those teams that came up from the Championship. Tomo, you mentioned the Merseyside derby that's coming up pretty soon. The other half of that, Liverpool. West Ham at home. Both teams played Thursday night in Europe. Thought that potentially could be a bit of a tricky one. With Loro thinking the draw likely, but Liverpool, great start continues. Their forward scoring. What was it? Salah, Nunez, and Jota. They're really starting to pick up the pace now.
Yeah, they look like, to me anyway, so far this season, it looks like Liverpool, the whole Liverpool City rivalry could be back on, because they look really good. It was a tough game for them, tough fixture. I thought West Ham did really well, to be honest, in the first half. I think Antonio missed an absolute sitter, and I think we'll come on to what he said before the game on the podcast, where he said that like he fancied West Ham to beat them. One thing I did notice was obviously Salah, Diaz, and Nunez started the game, which I think I said a couple of podcasts ago that I think that will be their starting front three going forward. And Liverpool looked good, to be fair. They looked dangerous. Their XG for the game was 3.93. Obviously got the 3 goals. That Dominic Szoboszlai looks like the real deal, doesn't he? And obviously Alexis McAllister, he's had a bit of a slower start to his Liverpool career. But he got a great assist here, didn't he, for Nunez? So he's settling in well. Liverpool, it's looking like they're back to their, maybe not back to the heights of a couple seasons ago, but they're definitely on the way to getting back to their best. And obviously Mo Salah, we can talk about him. He's either scored or assisted in 14 consecutive Premier League games. So looks like an absolute banker for an FPL shout, doesn't he?
What, Mo Salah?
That Mo Salah, 12.5 mil, But you know what I mean? Like,
no one's had him though, have they? Everyone since Haaland's come in last year, Salah was like, you might have Salah and Kane, but Haaland, people don't seem to have had Salah this year with Haaland. I don't know whether it's because Liverpool was so bad last year, but Salah's not in many teams, is he? Like, if you can get the budget together to get Salah in, then he just consistently churns through points, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's class. And also Darwin Núñez, I just wanted to mention him as well. Like, I swear to God, he is the same player in every single game. Like, he missed a couple absolute sitters in this game, which he seems to always do. And then he scored an absolute worldie. Like, he looks like an absolute nightmare to defend against. And we always say it, and I'm going to carry on saying it. He looks like at some point he is just going to go on like an unbelievable scoring run, because he's just got something about him that I really like. I don't know why. He's obviously a Liverpool player, but yeah, they look really good. Obviously got Tottenham in next week, which is a big game. If they can win that at Tottenham, then title contenders.
I don't know what it is. I'm trying to put my finger on what it is. I don't trust them. Like you just said, I think that City-Liverpool rivalry could be back on. I don't think that's even in question. I don't think they're anywhere near that. And I don't know why. They've had a really good start to the season. I was going to say that you can't trust them at the back, but they've only conceded 5 goals, which is the second best behind City in the league. And they've got, like, I mean, there's a conversation to be had about Salah being underrated now. Like, he's one of the best players we've ever seen in the Premier League. And he continues to do it year on, year out. And it may be the introduction of Erling Haaland into the Premier League has sort of diluted the attention on him. But I think Salah was still up there, right up there with the top goal scorers in the Premier last season. And you're right, he's just not spoken about as much. But if you've got him in your team, you're always going to have a chance. And you're also right about Núñez, because he misses the easy chances and scores the hard ones, doesn't he? But we talked about him being chaotic before. That's part of his, like, thrill. Like, he's so erratic, but that erraticness makes him score those hard chances. Like yesterday, when it just came over the top and he sort of flung a boot at it and it went past the keeper into the top corner. I'd rather my strikers score them. They've got plenty of good attackers there that can score tap-ins and stuff. And yeah, I'm glad to see Núñez start with that front three, like you spoke about, TGall. I think that's the most exciting and exhilarating front three, and then you've still got your Yotters, etc., to come off the bench. So, yeah, impressive again from Liverpool, but I'm still waiting for that bump in the road. I don't know where it's going to come or what it's going to look like, but I just don't see them as title challengers. But I'd like to be proven wrong, because I like when Liverpool are at full throttle, they're a really good watch.
Just on West Ham, actually, because obviously a lot of Liverpool love in there, really. But actually, there was a point when it was 1-1, when James Ward-Prowse whipped in across and laid it on a plate for Bowen to get his second headed goal of the game. Yeah. And he just heads it straight in the ground. And those are the type of moments that sort of separate your West Hams from your Liverpools, because West Ham did create some chances. And obviously, if you go to Anfield, you've just got to take them, haven't you? Otherwise, you will get beat. And they did get beat. But West Ham looked good. Obviously, was it Kudus? Did he get a couple of goals in the week? He come on, didn't he, at Anfield? But he got a couple of goals in Europe. I'm looking forward to seeing him cement his place in that team. I'm pretty sure he'll probably play either. I'm just trying to think, would he play instead of Antonio or in behind?
He's not a striker, is he?
Yeah, he kind of can play sort of anywhere across the front line. So I'm looking forward to him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him play. On that Liverpool point, though, Laurie, you said that they're not quite up there with City at the minute, and I agree with you. But their next 3 Premier League games are Spurs away, then Brighton and Everton. And if they can get three wins there, then they're definitely right up there. It's just how good City are. It's a bit depressing, isn't it? But yeah, you'd like to think there'd be a good title race if Liverpool can get back to their best.
Yeah, just before we finish on Liverpool, Laura, I think what you're thinking, that there's just something not quite right. I think it is, even though they've only conceded 5, they like went 1-0 down against Bournemouth, didn't they? And they had like that Souček header, which was an unreal save from Alisson. There were shouts for a West Ham penalty, wasn't there? There was the Bowen goal. There was the point that Tomo said where Bowen had another header that went straight at Alisson. I just think that they're not. Well, they are miserly at the back because they've only conceded 5, but they seem to always. Liverpool of old didn't even seem to like have chances against them, did they? Like, it was an absolutely massive thing about who was going to be the first person to dribble past Van Dijk, and now they just tend to concede goals. And last year they were in more sort of 4-3, 3-2 thrillers, and sometimes on the wrong side, whereas they don't seem to be conceding those goals, but there's still just a little bit of a soft underbelly there. But if they get through those next 3 games you just spoken about, Tomo, then we'll have to have some more serious conversations about them. Right, probably the first time in pod history, boys, we're nearly an hour in and we've not mentioned Man United in any detail, but we will quickly touch on them because I actually called on the pod that what United were absolutely desperate for was just a 1-2-0 victory against Burnley. No real kind of talking points, no big news stories coming out of it. I was pretty worried, Tom, when the team sheet came out. I must admit, I saw Hannibal, Lindelof, Evans, and thought this is going to be a long night. And in parts, you know, it wasn't the perfect finished article. In parts, it didn't look great, but a much needed 3 points.
A much needed 3 points indeed, but not a very good performance. I thought we looked terrible. And Loro, I know you're going to have a go at me for being so negative about United after a 1-0 win, but it has to be said, we looked awful. There's no There doesn't seem to be any sort of identity in our play. Teams seem to have worked out how good Onana is on the ball now. They just let him have it. And their pressing triggers are our centre-backs instead of Onana now. Couple positives. So I will have to say Johnny Evans did look good, didn't he? 35 years old, makes his first start. And you're right, everyone was slagging off the fact that he even had to start the game. But he looked really good. Obviously got the disallowed goal. Correct decision, in my opinion, that it was ruled out. And then that left-footed ping to Bruno Fernandes and Bruno Fernandes' goal was absolutely sensational. But the problem with United at the minute is it seems like we need an absolutely world-class thing to happen from one or two of our players to even get a chance or score. There doesn't seem to be any identity. It was a poor game, to be honest, and United were poor, but we won 1-0. And that's all I have to say about it. Let's move on.
And that's the problem at Manchester United. This culture being created by armchair fans. Look, you've gone out to Germany in the middle of the week and had a really difficult 4-3 loss to Bayern Munich. You've then gone to Turf Moor on a Saturday night against a Burnley team who would have earmarked that as a really good opportunity for 3 points. All the fans would have been up for it. You've gone in with a completely makeshift back four. It wasn't just Johnny Evans. You'd probably say Wan-Bissaka, Shaw, Varane and Martinez is the first choice back four. None of them were there / starting. You've also got Hannibal, who's playing in a really focal position of number 10, who actually had a really good game. And to be solid enough to keep a clean sheet and to produce the quality and the clarity in that finish that Bruno Fernandes and that move to win the game 1-0, I think is cause for a real positivity. And being a Man United fan, we all know there's underlying issues that sometimes surface on the pitch, and there'll be plenty of times this season to be negative about Man United. But going to Burnley away from home in the Premier League and picking up 3 points with that team is not one of them. And if I was a Man United player now, I'd be thinking, if we can't get a bit of positivity after that, when can we?
Laura, can I come in though quickly? We've gone to Burnley, a team who are 19th, 18th in the league, who are struggling, haven't won a game all season. And
why are you talking about that though? There's 6 games in.
But just listen. And I think they had 71% possession. So we've gone there and had 29%. We're Manchester United Football Club. I know that's a meme of saying all the pundits and people saying we are Manchester United Football Club. And do you know what? A sign I thought of how bad things are at United at the minute is how good I thought Hannibal was. And the only reason why I thought he was good was because he showed a lot of energy. He showed a lot of heart. He got himself stuck in. And obviously a couple moments of quality as well. But that's the bare minimum. Do you know what I mean? Every single player should be putting in a performance, putting in a shift, putting in 110%. McTominay, he looked off it. He looked awful. I don't know. There's something about him in a United shirt that just doesn't fit. He doesn't look like he wants to be there. Rashford, he is our best player, Rashford, or our most attacking threat, but he looks, his body language just is so negative, and it does piss you off as a United fan because he just looks like he doesn't want to be there. And he's just signed a 350 grand a week, 5-year deal. Yeah, look, maybe I shouldn't have gone in on them so much then, but yeah.
No, it's done now. And I think aside from personal attacks on the likes of Scott McTominay and Marcus Rashford, young men trying to make their way in the footballing world, a lot of the things you said are room for positivity. You've gone there and had, 29% possession and won with a makeshift team. Imagine if you had gone there with Shaw, Varane, Martinez, Wan-Bissaka, and you maybe could have implemented your game a little bit more. No, it was needs must, and you got 3 points. You will have, trust me, being a Man United fan, you will have plenty of time where you're more than within your rights to slate everything about it because they are useless. But I just think Saturday night was not one of them. You don't want those players going out there and producing 3 points for the football club and then just being picked apart by an angry TGall on Monday evening because you haven't had 75% possession. Fair?
Let's move on. I haven't really got much to add, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll move on. I will just say on United that, and I've been as negative as anyone, probably more negative than you, Tomo, on the pod so far, but Varane back into training, Martinez rested as precaution, I believe, Mason Mount back into training, Amrabat back into training and in the squad, Palace at home in the Cup, Palace at home in the league, Galatasaray at home in the Champions League, Brentford at home in the league, Sheffield United away in the league, Copenhagen at home in the Champions League, we could suddenly be sat here in a month's time at the end of October, and we've just had 6 winnable fixtures in a row in the Cup and League, and have most of our squad back in, and we could be having a completely different conversation. But that's a big but, because our performances don't look like we're going to go and put a run of 6-7 games together. But just to look at the other side of the coin, let's just give it a few more games. Let's get some of these players back into the squad, and let's see how we do with a more settled side. But
can I just say something, Murph? There was a tweet that went out and got viral yesterday, and it was Amrabat stats versus Burnley. And it was 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 duels won, 0 aerial duels won, 0 chances created, 0 accurate passes, and 0 tackles won. Terrible performance on his debut. He played 6 minutes at left back. I think TGall created that tweet, and that is everything that's wrong with Manchester United at the moment. And you wonder why you find yourself in such negative ruts. 3 points. Well done.
I think I saw that tweet. If you are running CFC Janty's account, then yeah, serious question marks. But no, I did see that. That's just Twitter all over, isn't it? Right. So from one from one Manchester club to another. So Man City, probably the most routine victory, 2-0 against Notts Forest, but maybe a potential little defining moment in the upcoming weeks and games for Man City is that Rodri got caught up in an incident with Tomo's boy Gibbs White and grabbed him by the throat. And will now serve a 3-game suspension, I think, which will see him miss the Arsenal game, accumulating him missing the Arsenal game, which is obviously a big fixture coming up for City. Rodri's been nothing but a shining light in the English football game for a couple of years now. This pod kind of raves about him, but complete moment of madness, Tomo.
No. It's not a red card. It's an absolute joke that's a red card. And I'll tell you now, the only reason why that's a red card is because Casemiro got sent off against Palace last season for exactly the same sort of incident where you put your hands on a player. But the reality is you can take a snapshot of that and it looks like he's getting strangled, but he didn't. He just put his hands up there. It's not a red card to me. It's ridiculous. I know it gives the ref a decision to make and the VAR a decision to make. So it is probably stupid, but it's not a red card for me. But I guess one of those things, isn't it? But that's definitely not a red for me. No way in hell.
No, if only you had that same energy supporting and defending your own football club, maybe it'd be a happier place to be a Man United fan. But I think the big point about that is, I don't know if they're appealing it, but will that go down as violent conduct? In which case, I think it'll be a 3-match ban, and one of the games will be Arsenal that he misses.
Yeah.
We need something to handicap them, don't we? We need something, because otherwise it's just...
Yeah, can I just say,
depressing.
Yeah, before that red card, and actually in the first half, City looked absolutely world class. And there's going to be a moment this season where they just beat someone 10-0 or something, because it's all going to click, because they looked unbelievable. For Phil Foden's goal, I think there was 46 passes before, and Phil Foden's goal was an absolute joke. Rodri's clip over the top. I thought Kyle Walker might shoot himself, and he's somehow seen Phil Foden behind him, and Phil Foden's finished well. It was unbelievable, and they look really good. Obviously, the red card sort of evened things out a bit, and Forest looked good in the second half. But yeah, comfortable win in the end for City. 6 out of 6. Sort of, it's scary. It's scary hours for the rest of the Prem.
Bit of an embarrassing dive from your man, Morgan Gibbs-White, as well. Didn't need to go down like that, did he?
What, for the red card?
For the red card?
Yeah, no, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. But Rodri, obviously City for giving the ref a decision to make, but I just don't think that they should be red cards, but it is what it is.
Well, he was sent off. I don't think when stuff like that gets slowed down, as we spoke about, and put into still photos, that he's going to get anything out of an appeal. And an appeal, you risk another further ban, which would be against Brighton. So I don't think Pep's going to do that. From what I've been seeing today, Pep's angry about Rodri for even doing it, getting himself into that situation when you're 2-0 up against Forest at home. Couldn't really be much more comfortable. And yeah, bit of a fiery side to Rodri, clearly. Right, so rest of the Premier League, just to round up, guys. So Brighton beat Bournemouth 3-1, so went 1-0 down after a goalkeeping mistake and Solanke, but Matoma off the bench with his first brace for Brighton to win 3-1, and their good start continues, albeit lost in the Europa League. Luton won, Wolves won, so Pedro Neto scored, Carlton Morris equalised to make it 1-1, but Luton desperately needed a win against 10 men, Wolves there. Go on.
Can I just have a quick little stat about that Wolves game, Pedro Neto's goal?
Yeah.
So Wolves have scored 6 goals in the Premier League this season. Pedro Neto's scored 1 of them, and he's assisted 4. Like he's so important to that team that if he gets injured, they are screwed. But
you know how you've had like Jota go to Liverpool or Trossard go to Arsenal? Could you just see Pedro Neto going to like an Arsenal or a Tottenham or a decent side like that? He just strikes me as that sort of level of player, like a Trossard, Jota, to get a move like that.
Yeah, he's a really good player. I think he got injured last season, didn't he? So he was injured for quite a lot, but he started the season really well, and he's just so important to that team. Obviously, we spoke a lot about Wolves not being able to score, etc. So, and he just needs to stay fit, and then they might have a chance. But yeah, poor game really.
They were down to 10 men, and dour result for both sides. They both needed a win there. And then the final game, Palace 0, Fulham 0. Not even going to give that the light of day. Must have been absolutely terrible to be at Selhurst Park. Boys, we're going to move on to the Championship. Probably only one place to start.
Are we going to apologise to the Brighton fans that blew Bournemouth away yesterday? Or
I just spoke about Matoma's magic.
Did you?
Yeah.
Is that all we get? Matoma's magic. Move on to the Championship. All right. Sorry, Seagulls. I thought that was an impressive victory yesterday.
Yeah, to be honest, I did think we probably should have covered that more than United at Burnley, but it was on TV, so I did give that.
All right, get yourself down to the EFL then.
Sorry, Brighton fans. So move on to EFL, and Laura was about to say only one place to start. Leeds 3-0 winners must be purring with their goals, the manager, and just the general feel at the club at the minute.
Yeah, when you said one place to start, I thought we were going to go to Home Park. So apologies, Plymouth fans. Apparently, you hitting a very, very good Norwich side for 6 doesn't quite combat Leeds United, who start the EFL topic every week. But yeah, it's exactly what I've been saying at Leeds, isn't it? I think everything that I've said so far is coming true. Daniel Farke, we gave him all just in September. We look absolutely class. All the players are quality. He's got them playing really, really well. Phil Hay, who's our sort of chief, or the journalist that covers Leeds that people pay most attention to, he's really, really impressed, and he doesn't normally mince his words. He just said after the Watford game, really genuinely good side we've got here. And what the standout at the weekend, I thought Pirro scored again, but Jorginho Rata, he's starting to look like the £30 million player we bought for the Premier League. And if you get a chance, I don't know if you've seen the goals, if you get a chance to have a look at him and his skill, and he's got this trademark sort of spin under pressure and turn into space and start setting up chances, he looks really, really special. And it's a good job that the likes of Leicester and Ipswich have got, I think, a 7 or 8, 9 point advantage on us, because they're going to need it. We're coming, and for me, we should be favourites for the league, because that is one very, very, very good Championship outfit ran by a very, very astute manager.
Yeah, Laura, actually, I wanted to ask you about one of your players, one of your most impressive players on the weekend. Dan James got 2 assists. He tops the Championship for most assists in the league this season with 4. He's only started 5 games, so that's a great return for him. Obviously, coming from Man United, so a bit of a Man United interest from me. How has he looked this season?
Well, I think the Championship is his level, really. He's a very good Championship player, isn't he? And the only reason Man United signed him in the first place is because they knew that Marcelo Bielsa wanted him for Leeds. I think he was at Ellen Road or Thorpe Arch having all the pictures taken, holding up a Leeds shirt, and then Swansea called it off at the last minute because Man United wanted him in the summer. He went to Man United, and obviously your coaching setup weren't good enough to produce him and sort of bring him on as a player. So he came back to Leeds, and look, we loaned him back to Fulham last year. I don't think he's a Premier League player, and he's not even someone that would start for us this year, I don't think, if everyone was fully fit. But having said that, you are right. He is producing some assists this season. His pace is scary, and he's always going to be a threat. So whether he starts or whether he comes off the bench in the Championship, he's a very good option to have. Not my favourite Leeds United player, but yeah, credit where it's due. He started okay.
So moving on, guys, in the Championship, Plymouth Norwich were on my list, but weren't next. Ipswich had a 4-3 win at home to Blackburn, so maintain their good start. Another win for Kieran McKenna. They're now joint top with Leicester, who won 1-0 against Bristol City. Tomo, did you? I'm sure you would have tweeted about actually. Jamie Vardy scored a penalty and then ran the length of the pitch to celebrate in front of the Bristol City fans.
Yeah, I saw that. Proper Adebayor moment, wasn't it? Apparently, the Bristol City fans were doing his wife giving his wife a bit of stick, basically all game. So kudos to him for doing that. I actually just wanted to touch on Ipswich because obviously Kieran McKenna's their manager. We spoke about them in a previous podcast. 7 wins and 1 defeat this season. The 1 defeat coming against Leeds, I believe. They look like a really good team. They've got this. They basically top the table for XG stats. So obviously playing attacking, free-flowing football. Got the 4 goals against Blackburn on the weekend and showed a lot of character to get the winner in the end. Nathan Broadhead looking good. Got 4 goals and got an assist in the Championship so far, and obviously scored a great goal against Blackburn. And they've got loads of players who seem to be chipping in with goals and assists. They've got Amari Hutchinson on loan from Chelsea, who's looking good. I think he's coming off the bench in most games. And then Leif Davis, one of the most creative players in the Championship this season. He's averaging 3 chances every 90 minutes. So he's made 21 chances in the 7 games that he's played. So they're looking really good. Obviously, Kieran McKenna, the big worry for them, I guess, would be if a Premier League team decide to sack their manager and come in for him, because obviously he's really impressed since he's gone into management from Man United.
Yeah, stunning. Add that to your Preston segment last week. We had Preston Corner, but that Ipswich piece was brilliant.
Sublime, TGall. Sublime. Do you know where Leif Davis plays, TGall?
No.
Left back, ex-Leeds. Glad to see that he's impressing you in the Championship this season.
So win for McKenna and also a win for Michael Carrick as well. So they won 2-1 against Southampton. Another loss for Russell Martin. We obviously spoke about him in late. Both sides needed the win, but it was Middlesbrough who got all 3, hoping that Carrick can pick up a few more wins now and start to move up through the table for them. And then there was a mid-table fixture between Plymouth and Norwich as well, which I think finished 6-2 or something like that, but not much to speak about there.
Other than Morgan Whittaker's hat-trick.
Yeah,
well done,
Morgan. Bit of Monday night football actually tonight, boys. Coventry versus Huddersfield. Is Warnock gone now? I know that they were bringing Darren Moore. Is he in now?
Yeah, he's in.
Yeah.
So, I think both sides down near the bottom, but bit of Monday night football if anyone needs their.
Can we touch on Hull?
You can touch on Rossinia's men if you want to, Tomo. Clearly more to say.
Yeah, loads of research done here. No, they're 7 unbeaten in the league. I think they're 4th now. They lost their first 2 games of the season against Norwich and against Doncaster in the EFL Cup, but they haven't lost since. They're really outperforming their stats. I had a look. They're basically mid-table for most of their XG stats. So they're doing really well. Obviously, we spoke about Liam Rossinia's really impressive individual. I think he was a pundit, wasn't he? An EFL pundit last year or the year before, and he just speaks really well. They've got Aaron Connolly, the former Brighton lad. He's a joint top goal scorer in the Championship with 5 goals. And they're the only team in the league to beat Leicester this season. So fair play to the Tigers.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean,
fair play to the Tigers.
We're getting there. We're the research only goes so far. Liam Rossinia was appointed as Philip Cocu's special advisor about 4 years ago at Derby, then spent time as assistant managers to Wayne Rooney, then was actually Derby's manager for a little bit before being taken by Hull. So a little bit longer off of EFL coverage, but he was a very good pundit who does speak very well. And it's always interesting to see how that translates from the TV into management. It didn't work for Gary Neville very well. It didn't work for Chris Hargreaves, Yeovil's manager at the start of last year. So it's nice to see Liam Rossinia gaining some plaudits from some diehard EFL fans like TGall.
Well, TGall, if it's any consolation, when I saw that Rossini was in charge at Hull, I thought it was Leroy, who's Liam's dad. So don't worry too much. I was well off it. But yeah, great start for them. I think actually it probably should have mentioned them a bit more, up into fourth now, albeit 5 points behind Preston, and then you got Ipswich and Leicester. But that is a great start for them. And Sunderland obviously lost to Cardiff, who are in fifth and seventh position, Sandwich and Leeds. So yeah, great start for Hull. Boys, any more championship sides before that we've done research on before I move on?
No.
Grand. We'll move on to League One then. So Oxford, I think it was second versus fourth, wasn't it? We said Oxford beat Exeter 3-0. Another really top display from them, and big 3 points towards the top of the table. Top of the table, Portsmouth won 2-1 at home to Lincoln. Our boy Paul Warne went and won away at Carlisle. Massive result for Derby. So yeah, a bit more pressure off of Paul and buzzing for him and the boys. But bit of a result that I saw, which was a big game in that league. Bolton versus Peterborough, drew 1-1, but both of those sides are just starting to fall away from the playoff positions there. Peterborough side who I was expecting to be up there. Lauro, any thoughts on that game in particular?
No, not really. I've been looking at Bolton fans' replies to like the official club account tweets, and they're not very happy. But Ian Everett's done a good job there, and he sort of had them right up there last season. And I think they're still favourites to win the league now. So maybe it's just a case of their mentality is we should be winning the league, and they're seeing clubs like Portsmouth and Oxford win every week and then falling away. That can get a little bit frustrating at times, but I'd expect to see them up there. And as far as Peterborough's go, they're a bit weird. In the summer, they transfer listed all their best players, including Johnson Clark-Harris, who's been the top scorer for the last few years. Yeah. He scored at the weekends. I think they were trying to offload him to Bristol Rovers that fell through on deadline day. So really weird one on Peterborough. Normally, they're a club that like to buy sort of attacking players, don't they, from lesser clubs. But they brought in Shiamanga on a permanent in the summer and loaned him straight out to Fleetwood. So bit of a weird transitional period maybe for Peterborough, but they're still 8th, so they're always up there, aren't they, in League One? It wouldn't surprise me if they were in the playoffs again.
Yeah, and then Tomo, Barnsley went and won away at Northampton. Particular goal scorer stood out there, Devante Cole, son of former Man United legend Andy Cole. Any stats for us on him?
Scored 9 in his last 9 games. So obviously doing well in that league. Big up Andy Cole.
Yeah,
Andy Cole, he scores goals. Yeah.
A son cut from the same cloth, albeit a couple divisions lower. And then actually should mention as well Stevenage, who are right up there as well, I think in 3rd place. They went away to Cheltenham and won 3-0. And I think Cheltenham now have set a new record, Tomo.
Yeah, 9 games, 0 goals, new record for that league. Or might even be a new record for the whole of the EFL. But yeah, absolute nightmare start to the season for them. And it's looking like straight back to League 2.
Yeah, that looks like that form looks like they've not got a hope in hell of even getting out of that. Albeit looking at it, they're only 5 or 6 points off getting out of it. But yeah, that's abstract and no goals in those games. Boys, we'll quickly move on to League 2 then. So Notts County, top of the table, 4-3 win against Forest Green. Their great start to the season continues, but Troy Deeney went and scored a hat-trick for Forest Green. I thought he'd retired, but fair enough, Troy. Well done on bagging a hattie. But yeah, Notts County, obviously, one side we spoke about who came up, Wrexham the other. Wrexham had Stockport, and we previewed, actually, I think Stockport had won their last 3. And Wrexham hadn't lost since the opening game of the season against MK Dons. But Lauro, bit of a rout for Stockport.
Yeah, they're a good side though, Stockport. At the start of the season, I think I had them in Gillingham going up, and their manager Dave Chandler, all he does is get promoted. So he started off in like Ireland or Wales or something like that and got someone promoted. Then he went to Fylde in non-league, and I think he got them promoted 2 or 3 times. Then he went to Hartlepool and got them promoted. Now he's at Stockport and he got them promoted, and it wouldn't put it past him to get promoted again this year. And as for Wrexham, they've got that in them. They've got that in, even in the conference, they'd have games where they sort of well, not got hit for 5, but would win sort of 5-4, 4-3 here and there. So it doesn't surprise me if they come up against a good side and they're having an off day that they can ship that many. But I saw another goal for the evergreen Paddy Madden in that one as well, who's adding to his EFL goal scoring stats. And I would have thought he's probably right up there with one of the highest EFL scorers now, because he's been doing that for about 10 years. So good to see him still notching away.
Here's one for you, Murph, as well. Actually, I want to ask you a question. Which former Barcelona player scored a brilliant individual goal for Stockport against Wrexham? He scored 6 goals and made 2 assists in League Two for Stockport this season. And he's on loan from Aston Villa.
Oh. What is he played for Barcelona?
Probably played for their B team.
Mate, I've not got a clue. Go on.
Louie Barry. And his performances this season for Stockport have been so good that Villa are he's on a season-long loan there from Villa, and Villa are considering recalling him in January. I don't know whether that'll be to play for them or to potentially get him another loan at a step above, because he's looking like he's too good for that league at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking back through his career journey. He was in West Brom under-18s in 2018-19, then went through the Villa Academy before going to Ipswich. So he must have been really early, his stint in Barcelona. And Louie Barry doesn't sound all that Catalonian, does it? So, yeah, fair enough. And then,
boys, are you sure about that one, TGall?
Yeah, I have to see his time at Barca.
I'm just going to send you boys a picture of him in a Barcelona shirt.
Oh, that's that then. He played for Barca.
Well, okay. Well, he did.
Well, I had a Barcelona shirt with Kluivert on the back, but I didn't play up front.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
right.
He signed for Barcelona from West Brom.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Well, good luck to Louie Barry. And if they're thinking about recalling him, then that's a big jump up from League Two to Prem back to Villa. But yeah. Fair play to him. Other games from League Two. So Gillingham, actually, who were setting an early pace, lost versus Doncaster. Doncaster showing just how good Beto's performance was a couple of weeks ago in the Cup. Mansfield in third, won versus Barrow, and Crawley won versus Grimsby. So, yeah, most of the teams up at the top there keep setting the pace. But, yeah, losses for Wrexham and Gillingham at the weekend, but Swindon, Crewe, and randomly Wimbledon are up there. Laura, I'm sorry, I'll quickly come to you. Sorry to put you on the spot. I hadn't seen that Wimbledon were doing that well.
Do you know who their assistant manager is?
Is he ex-Yeovil?
Yeah.
No.
Terry Skiverton. Terry Skiverton is the assistant manager to Johnny Jackson at Wimbledon. And yes, they have had a good start. And they've got Josh Nerfield up front. And they've got James Tilley, who we had on loan under Darren Searle a couple of years ago. And he's the second top scorer in the league, I think. So, yeah. Glad that Wimbledon got a shout out. They've had a good start to the season. I know that not many people watch this on YouTube, right? But TGall's just sent us a picture of Louie Barry in a Barcelona shirt. Might not be able to see it because I've blurred out my background. But when you were asked whether he actually played for the Barcelona first team, it doesn't exactly look like the Nou Camp in the background to me.
No, but he did play for Barcelona, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Just the under-19 team.
In 2019 to 2020, he did play for Barcelona in their youth career. So apologies to TGall. But yeah, he's had some loans, Ipswich, Swindon, MK Dons, Salford, and now Stockport. So he's obviously making waves now. Right, boys, we're going to finish up as we normally do with Yeovil Town. So Laura, you went up to Richmond at the weekend, drove up, and again, all three.
Yeah, lovely place, Richmond. Normally you go to like these, not to be disrespectful to every other town in England, but you go to these places and you think, how on earth do people live here? But I could live in Richmond. That was a lovely little place. That was a lovely little place, driving through those alleys, and there was a nice pub there called the World's End, which we sat in and watched Woking York, and unfortunately York won 2-1. So yeah, Matt Agler got the better of Darren Searle in that one. But yeah, it was probably our best performance of the season for Yeovil, but it was probably also the worst team that we'd played, I think. A couple of ex-Yeovil boys in there. Jake Gray and Ben Seymour played for Hampton and Richmond. And up until about the 60th, maybe 70th minute, it was just full control. We probably should have been about 5-0 up at half-time. didn't materialise, and then the ref just made it all about him and just started booking everyone. Jake Hyde came on as a substitution and got sent off within about 5 minutes. And then at the end, I think Matt Worthington was adjudged to have handballed it in the box, and he gave it as a denial of a goal scoring opportunity and gave Hampton and Richmond a penalty, which they scored. But luckily, I think that was in like the 97th minute. So another win. And for the first time this season, Yeovil are now favourites to win the league. So
that's obviously that's the third win in a row, isn't it, for Yeovil? I've just had a look at our fixtures. Our next league game at home to Aveley, who are third.
Yeah.
Then the next one after that, albeit it might get rearranged, is Bath City, who are first. It probably will get rearranged because of the FA Cup. And then the next game after that is Worthing, who are fourth.
Yeah.
So if you get through those couple of fixtures and you win them, then all of a sudden Yeovil might start running away with the league. But they're difficult games, aren't they? Difficult games.
Yeah, you're right. October's a massive month for us in terms of those fixtures. And the last game of that month is our friends from Dorset, Weymouth, visit Hewish Park on the 24th of October as well. So massive month. Worthing in particular are a very good team. And the thing about playing some of these sides away is that they've got these plastic pitches. And the 2 losses we've had this season have been away from home on the plastic pitches, and we just seem to crumble on them. So that'll be a big, big game. So yeah, hopefully we can beat Aveley week Saturday and maybe go top. And then we'll approach that Worthing fixture with everything we've got, and that'll be the biggest game of the season so far. But you're right, if we can get through it, we could be HMS Piss the league setting sail.
Yeah, and just a quick one on the FA Cup game against Didcot. They're in the division below, are they? In the relegation zone, so it looks like we'll smash them as well.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get to the first round proper and maybe start a run and see how good we are against some of the Football League sides. But I think when you're at this level, the monetary side of the FA Cup comes into it. And Yeovil are giant killers. We've got a good history of that, haven't we? It'd be nice if we can get another big name down to Hewish Park at some point. But yeah, a while to go. I will say, though, this is the lowest we've ever started in the FA Cup. It's so annoying. Like, the league is so disjointed because every other week's an FA Cup game because we're playing these teams because we're in like the, I don't know, whatever preliminary round it is. So the actual FA Cup, I don't think, starts till November, and we're having to play all these games. That's one bugbear of being this low, but we've only got ourselves to blame.
Yeah, well, hopefully we do get through to the first round. We went and watched them v Newport pre-season, didn't we? And we look level above them, and they're all right starting League Two. Actually, they're sat in 15th place. So, but obviously onwards and upwards for the Glovers. I didn't realise quite how big a month October was looking like. So, be interested to see the performances and hear about the performances from you, Laura. Boys, that's all we've got time for. We'll wrap up there. We'll be back on Thursday where we'll review the kind of key action from the Carabao Cup games and preview the weekend action. But as always, a pleasure. Speak to you both soon.
Cheers, boys.